Hi, welcome to Box on the Box Rock and Celluloid, or Bot for short. Today I'm going to be looking at my favourite Hammer films, my all-time top 10 of Hammer horror. So I'm really excited about this. Hammer films were a real treat when I was younger, probably about late 79, maybe into early 1980. I started off by watching the Universal horrors like The Wolfman, original Frankenstein, not a Universal horror, but I remember one called The Beast with Five Fingers as well, probably on BBC One or BBC Two on a Friday night. Obviously I was at school then, primary school, so typically my bedtime was 8:30, but on a Friday night I could stay up later and watch things like that, so it was great for me. Later on in that period, the Hammer films, we started to watch those, and obviously the horror went into colour, into those glorious reds and greens and those types of colours we associate with Hammer. So I'm going to do this as a one-up, but typically, let's just go through some of them that didn't make the cut. But I'll just start off like Hammer made several Frankenstein films. I'll just go through them, but some will be mentioned later on. But there was A Curse of Frankenstein in 1957, Revenge of Frankenstein in 1958, both Terence Fisher. Then Evil of Frankenstein 1964, Frankenstein Created Woman. I think Evil of Frankenstein's when he's like frozen in ice, I think he'd be the monster. Then you got Frankenstein Must Be Destroyed 1969, so another Fisher one. And then Horror Frankenstein 1970s, the odd one out. That stars Ralph Bates. So Ralph Bates, it's kind of a reworking of the first Frankenstein film, this one, but I really like it. Ralph Bates plays him as a complete bastard, like Peter Cushing. Always liked Ralph Bates, like him in the Karnstein film, forget the name of the one, Lust for a Vampire, I think that's got Mike Raven in as well. When they couldn't get Christopher Lee, they got the former DJ Mike Raven, and then used close-ups of Christopher Lee's eyes, I believe. But like that, Ralph Bates as well, he was in a British sitcom later on called Dear John, so he's quite a fondly remembered actor. He was in the original 1970s Paul Dark as well as the villain, George Warlegan. He sadly died of cancer. And then the last one is Frankenstein the Monster from Frankenstein the Monster from Hell 1974, and that starred Peter Cushing and Shane Bryan, and that's actually one of my picks for like ones that nearly made the cut. That's a really good one, Frankenstein the Monster from Hell, set in an asylum, Cushing on bastard mode, maybe not quite as bastardy. Dave Prowse, Darth Vader as the monster, and again Shane Bryan, like I said, he was a young actor that were pushing in Hammer to sort of, along with Ralph Bates, to kind of take over the legacy in the 70s. But he was in a film called Straight On Till Morning, which is directed by Peter Collinson, which is a Hammer film, and Rita Tushingham, so quite high-profile people in it, but a really strange film. Quite a horrible bit where it records a dog being tortured, and doesn't really feel like a Hammer film. They're obviously trying to kind of get a different market, but if you can see that film, it was very strange. Obviously, then you've got Dracula, which was obviously a huge one for the Hammer people. So Dracula 1958, Horror of Dracula's US title, and Brides of Dracula 1960. That was one that was possibly going to make the cut, but hasn't. It's got David Peel as Dracula, so Christopher Lee doesn't do this one, but Peter Cushing's in it as Van Helsing. But David Peel's very good. He didn't do many films, and he later went on to be an estate agent. But it's got the brides in it, so it's tapping into that Bram Stoker source material, and it's got a great bit where Cushing gets bitten, and he uses like a hot poker, something like that, and burns the fang marks out, the virus basically, and he kind of faints, and Dracula gets killed. He gets caught in the shadow of a windmill, and it forms a cross. Really cool, quite imaginative. Then you've got Dracula Prince of Darkness, then you've got Dracula's Risen from the Grave, then there's Taste the Blood of Dracula 1970, and Scars of Dracula 1970, so two then. I think Taste the Blood's the one where he goes out for revenge, and after he's killed someone, Christopher Lee goes, the first, because it's the first person he killed. Guess what happens when he kills the second person? The second. And that's got Peter Sallis in it, who will be familiar to international audiences as the voice of Wallace from Wallace and Gromit. We know him as Clegg from the sitcom Last of the Summer Wine. And then you've got Scars of Dracula, I mentioned before, and that's got Dennis Wortman in it. So Dennis Wortman had been in The Bellstone Fox. That's actually after this. I think he's in Up the Junction. He's in some 60s film, but he's principally known in our country, in the UK, as George Carter in the great cop show The Sweeney, and Minder as well, and New Tricks, which he sings a theme tune for. And then he did Dracula AD 72 and Satanic Rites of Dracula in 1973. I think Stephanie Beacham's in AD 72, but don't quote us on that. Again, these are trying to, in a contemporary setting, trying to get funky with the times. AD 72 is trying to kind of tap into the counterculture hippie thing, but it's coming a bit late. Reminds me of that film like Psychomania. Is that Nicky Henson with the demon biker gang and Beryl Reid? Can't remember now. But it's that thing, they're trying to move the times, and Satanic Rites of Dracula. Dracula's gone into big business, and he's in league with the Russians. In actual fact, the remake of Dracula they did for BBC TV recently with, forgetting the name of the Danish actor, but it started off really good, but then it went wrong, but it had a lot of reference points to different Hammer films, and I think the Satanic Rites of Dracula, the contemporary setting, and I think he was kind of in business later on in it, was referencing that. Okay, so those are that's a bit of spotted history of their two biggest franchises. Other ones that didn't make the cut, I mentioned Brides of Dracula and the Frankenstein the Monster of Hell, which would be two choices that could have got in. You got the Gorgon and the Reptile, both 1966 for the Reptile, which is John Gilling, and the Gorgon, that's a Medusa from 1964. The Reptile stars Jacqueline Pierce as some moth monster woman, and we will know her as Servalan from Blade 7. But they're pretty funky. There's Curse of the Werewolf from 1961, Oliver Reed, again Terence Fisher directing, and The Mummy, the original Mummy from 1959 with Christopher Lee as the bandaged one. That's Terence Fisher as well directing it. So the name Terence Fisher is one which will turn up a lot in this list. A couple of psychological thrillers I like. For black and white from the early 60s, Taste of Fear, directed by Seth Holt. So this stars Susan Strasberg, and it's that classic plot where someone's kind of playing with their mind. Is it an imagination, or is it really happening? It's pretty good. If you don't know who Susan Strasberg is, she's an American actress, but her dad was Lee Strasberg, the famous acting coach who appears in The Godfather 2 and trained Pacino and so on. And there's Paranoiac, 1963, it's Ollie Reed, kind of like Psycho. It's got a really cool ending, this. I think that's Freddie Francis directs that. He's a great cinematographer. Okay, so that's kind of ones that didn't make the cut. Oh, just one more, Dr. Jekyll and Sister Hyde. It's a really cool spin on the Dr. Jekyll thing where he turns into a woman when he's Hyde. She's played by Martine Beswick. Martine Beswick was in Thunderball as the sacrificial lamb. She's an agent that gets killed by Spectre. But yes, it's a good one, particularly kind of ahead of its time when you think of gender fluidity and identity politics and so forth. It's way ahead of its time. So yeah, just checking that, and I've got all those covered there. So let's go into the top 10 then. Just before we start, a few things about Hammer. Obviously, they've got a really key look. Lots of reds, kind of greens, very vivid colours. Very bloody for the times. They have a sort of team that always worked on them. And Terence Fisher was their key director, and he played a big part in sort of creating the template, the look of Hammer. They started in the 1930s, but their first venture into the horror genre, science fiction, was the Quatermass and Quatermass 2 from the Nigel Neal TV thing originally, and then that kind of set things rolling, and then when they went into colour with The Curse of Frankenstein, they really arrived. James Bernard is really important as well, the composer, so his musical scores are very bombastic, and in the case of Dracula, they use the syllables of the word as to make up the musical motif, Dracula kind of thing. So he's got a distinctive style, so all these things come together to create the Hammer look. Okay, so coming in at number 10, I mentioned it before, I'm going for The Curse of Frankenstein. So this is the first Frankenstein film, 1957. So the makeup on this is not like the Boris Karloff bolt through the neck. They couldn't get the rights to use that imagery. It must be trademarked by Universal. So they went their own way. And it's really effective. It's like a botched surgery, really. And I think Kenneth Branagh, when he did his Frankenstein version in 1994, I think he saw inspiration from the Hammer films and the makeup using Christopher Lee for Robert De Niro's take. Worth watching, actually, the Kenneth Branagh one. Bit overdone in places, but I like it. I've seen it quite a few times, and I think it's better in some ways than Bram Stoker's Dracula Coppola one. Okay, so Curse of Frankenstein, yeah, Cushing plays a total bastard. I think he pushes someone over a banister, doesn't he? And an interesting thing about Cushing with this was when he knew he was going to play the surgeon, he started wearing surgical gloves and taking care of his hands. you know, and a little bit of method in his preparation, just to try and get into the spirit of what someone might be like. And that's what I love about Cushing. When he comes to this role, he's about 43, 44. About that age. He'd appeared as Winston Smith in the TV version of 1984 and 1951, I think. So he'd done character parts, supporting actor, but this is where he becomes a horror icon, and he's just a class act, Cushing. I think he's a better actor than Christopher Lee. Christopher Lee's a great presence and has done great performances, but there's something really consistent about Peter Cushing. Find me a bad Peter Cushing performance. There just isn't one. Guy just oozed sort of professionalism and authenticity to me. So Curse of Frankenstein, great, gets the ball rolling. Hammer become very big, and then they follow it up with Dracula, US title horror of Dracula, and that's my number 9 choice. Again, Terence Fisher directs in 1958. This is one of the template Dracula films, other than like Murnau's Nosferatu and the Bela Lugosi Universal version. So it's really good. Kind of follows elements of the Bram Stoker plot, I believe. It's got a fantastic climax when Cushing's Van Helsing runs along the table and pulls the curtains down, and almost swashbuckling, slightly Robin Hoodish, I think that. And then the great dissolve, you know, when Dracula wastes away. But really good, you know, an absolute classic, an important film, not only in Hammer history, but the entire history of horror films. My number 8 choice, looking at it, maybe this should have been number 10. I kind of just randomly went through these, but another Terence Fisher one. This is 1959, right off the bat. Fisher, 57, 58, 59, and he does the money in 59. We'll come to Fisher at the end. But The Hand of the Baskervilles. So this is their take, their gothic horror take on Sherlock Holmes novel. Obviously, this was the first film of the Rathbone era, 1939, and along the Scarlet Claw, it's the scary one. But Hammer used their colour, their sort of their rich production values that are done on a budget to bring it to life. Andre Morel plays Dr. Watson, and he's another key Hammer actor. Like Peter Cushing, he will play like the patriarchal figure, the savant who has knowledge of the thing they're battling. Obviously, in this case, is the sidekick to Sherlock Holmes, Peter Cushing, Sherlock Holmes. And Cushing's excellent. I mean, you know, Rathbone will always be the main, the principal cinematic version of Holmes. I think Jeremy Brett is maybe the definitive sort of psychological Holmes in terms of the drug addiction and the kind of torment. And then I think Cushing, you know, he's kind of next in line for me, but he's right up there. He's one of the best performances of that classic character. So I love that. Then you've got an unusual one next, jumping ahead into the 1970s, 1974. So at this point, Hammer's trying to survive, really. They've taken a hit at the end of the 60s. Their kind of heyday's over, really. And they do Captain Kronos Vampire Hunter. So this has, what's the name of the actor? Apologies, Horst Janssen, German actor. I actually looked up before, he's 85 now. So this guy's a quite well-known German TV actor. So he's quite charismatic, his acting's not great, but he's a guy, literally, Captain Kronos, he hunts vampires. But quite like a depiction of the vampire castle and the family, the sort of male of a male lead's pretty cool. And there's some good stuff with mirrors. But it's directed by Brian Clemens. So Brian Clemens created The Professionals and some UK action series like The New Avengers. But he actually directed another horror film prior to this called And Soon the Darkness. So if you've not seen And Soon the Darkness, it's really good. It's about 2 girls on holiday, cycling holiday in France, but they're targeted by a killer. So it's in that kind of, it's sort of the stalk and slash genre, I suppose, but predating that a bit. It's really effective. It's got a good atmosphere and makes use of the French countryside really well. So check that out. So Clemens does another good one with this, good quirky. And it also features Caroline Munro. So she's one of the all-time Hammer babes. I'm not sure if she did other Hammer films. But Caroline Munro is in The Golden Voyage of Sinbad, which is my favourite Sinbad film, with Martin Short as well, and Tom Baker. And she was the kind of villainess in The Helicopter in The Spy Love Me. So all-time Hammer babe, along with Varya Leone and ladies like that. We'll get that out of the way. Okay, so number 6 is another unusual one again, 1971, coming just after the heyday, but I think this is a really effective one. This is Hands of the Ripper. Always like this. So this is kind of a bit more psychological. So basically, it's Jack the Ripper's daughter. She witnesses one of his killings as a kid, witnesses Jack the Ripper killing her mother, I think. She's psychologically affected by it later in life. I think she's a prostitute herself. And she, apologise. She is not the daughter I think her mum is murdered by the Ripper and she sees her mum's a prostitute. Later on, might be a prostitute, don't quote me because I've not read up the plot and I've seen it for a while. She has flashbacks basically, and that, makes her kill. And then Andrew Keir Eric Portman, apologies, the great Eric Portman is the authority figure in this, and he kind of takes her in her wing. He might be a kind of psychiatrist type of guy, doctor. It's got a great climax at the Whispering Gallery in St Paul's. Really good. This is directed by Peter Salasy, so he did a few Hammer films. I can't remember offhand which ones. He did one of the Draculas, I think, and so on. Maybe some of the Karnstein ones. But it's a good film. It's different. It's got a good atmosphere. It's well shot. It's just something a bit different, and that's why I like it. It stands out. Okay, coming in at number 5 is, I think, the best Dracula film, Dracula Prince of Darkness. So this has got a great look. It's got a fantastic climax on the ice, and they often show this on behind the scenes footage on Hammer, and you can see how good the team was at making something in a studio in Bray look like it's in the Carpathian Mountains. But interestingly enough, I'm not sure it was made before or after, but Rasputin and the Mad Monk used the same cast and the same sets. So I suspect that was done cheap. I suspect they spent more on Dracula. As soon as it wrapped, used the same cast, Barbara Shelley, Andrew Keir, who's the monk, who's the Van Helsing type figure in this, the Savant. Christopher Lee is Rasputin, and I went and shot Rasputin and the Mad Monk on the same sets with the same director. I think Terence Fisher does that. I'd have to check. Apologies, don't quote me on that. But anyway, Terence Fisher directs this. And Michael Reed is a cinematographer. So I haven't mentioned any other cinematographers, but Michael Reed did Majesty's Secret Service, the James Bond film. And that's got a great look. It's a unique looking Bond film, and this guy's a real great craftsman. It's the only Bond film he did, but it's really effective. So that's number 5. Yeah, well, I think that's better than Dracula / Horror of Dracula. It's just kind of feels like an evolved Dracula. It's got more memorable things. The other great scene in it, just before I move on, is when Barbara Shelley's been made a vampire, and then they stake her, Andrew Keir's character, and the male group stood around her, and obviously she's become sexualised, as it were, and they return her to her purity, so to speak. It's kind of classic Hammer imagery. Number 4, this is a good one, Plague of the Zombies, one of a few zombie films. There's another one which has Joan Fontaine in, The Witches. Well, it's about witches, yeah. It's got like kind of black magic and stuff. Sorry. But anyway, Plague of the Zombies, set in a Cornish tin mine. The tin mine owner, forget the name of the actor, but he's a good British character actor. And he is using, I guess, Haitian voodoo, and he's creating zombies, and they're working in his mine. This has Andre Morel in it again as the kind of authority figure, and there's another actor in it, and I'm just going to find the name of him quickly. I swore I wasn't going to do this because I've actually redone this, but Plague of the Zombies, Brooke Williams. So Brooke Williams, he's the guy, he's in Where Eagles Dare after this, and he's the guy when the parachute in, I think, and he breaks his neck, but actually someone's broken his neck, I think. So there's a traitor in the midst, but that's what I recognised him from. But this is really cool. The best bit in this is a dream sequence with Brooke Williams' character, and it's shot with handheld camera. So handheld camera's obviously popular in the Nouvelle Vague, and it starts to find its way into perhaps kitchen sink dramas, but certainly American films of the American New Wave. But this is pretty cool sequence, quite ahead of its time, using that kind of technique, and sort of showing like the kind of shooting from the hip style that might come into play for Chainsaw Massacre and the cycle of American horror films in the early 70s. So it's a really good one. This really good. John Gilling directs it. He also did The Reptile that I mentioned before, and that used the same set. So once Plague of the Zombies wrapped, they went straight into The Reptile, and John Gilling shot that. I'm just going to check if it comes after. It does, yeah. That's in 1966. They did 2 films, Dracula Prince of Darkness, then shot Rasputin and Mad Monk, and Plague of the Zombies shot The Reptile on the same set, saving money. The Witches, 1966 as well. Okay, so up to number 3. This is I actually thought Ralph Bates was in this, but it's Simon Ward. This is my favourite Frankenstein film. You may find this unusual because it's the 5th one in the cycle, but it's Frankenstein Must Be Destroyed. Love this. Cushing is at his bastard best in this. and Terence Fisher directs. Basically, a doctor's brain is put in the body of Freddie Jones. There's a great sequence near the end where Freddie Jones goes to see his wife, but obviously doesn't look like the wife's husband because he looks like Freddie Jones. It's disturbing. Really good. Simon Ward's really good. I mean, he's a good actor, Simon Ward. Obviously, Cushing's great. I don't know what it is about this. I just think it's an interesting take on the Frankenstein thing. The depiction of the monster's kind of more human because of what they've done. They managed to evolve it, but I think it represents an ending. After this, the sort of young stars will appear more. It's Fisher at the end of the 60s. This isn't the last. He will do one more Frankenstein the Monster from Hell, but it's pretty much, Fisher stepping aside after this, I think. I think it's a really good one. It's my favourite of the Frankenstein films. Okay, and number 2, this is Andrew Keir as the great Bernard Quatermass in the Pit in 1967. So it's quite weird. They'd done the Quatermass one in 1955, I think. Quatermass 2, 56, 57, black and white. And then it took them ages to get to Quatermass in the Pit. But this is the best Quatermass story, I think. This is where archaeologists near a church, uncover an alien spacecraft that's been there for a long time. I'm not sure how long. And basically aliens kind of psychically getting the humans' heads and sort of come to life that way. But it's really good. Andrew Keir's really good. When I watch this, sometimes I think, if they'd ever done a Quatermass film, because Andrew Keir's Scottish, they could have used Sean Connery. I think he'd have been a really good Bernard Quatermass and done a great Quatermass, Hollywood or British Hollywood film. I still think it's a character that could be brought back for TV. You can take the Quatermass character and write new stories because he's great. I always quite like John Mills one from '79 as well. Okay, so number 10 was Curse of Frankenstein. 9, Dracula, Horror of Dracula. 8, The Hound of Baskervilles. 7, Captain Kronos, Vampire Hunter. 6, Hands of the Ripper. 5, Dracula, Prince of Darkness. 4, Plague of the Zombies. 3, Frankenstein Must Be Destroyed. 2, Quatermass and the Pit. I should just mention that was directed by Roy Ward Baker. Quatermass and the Pit, another sort of good British craftsman. So my number 1 choice, and when I'm talking about British craftsman, is directed by Terence Fisher. I was looking down my list. I think 10 of all the films I've talked about, including the ones that hadn't made the cut, were directed by Terence Fisher. This guy's really important. He's an important British filmmaker. And he creates the Hammer style. In that respect, I would compare him to kind of the Bond films. Terence Young kind of creates the initial style for Bond. Guy Hamilton adapts that for a kind of lighter touch. Lewis Gilbert, with You Only Live Twice, creates the grand spectacle. And if you take those 3 Bond filmmakers, whenever other Bond filmmakers come along, they will kind of take their cues from those Bond makers. I want to do a gritty one, Russia with Love. I want to do something with spectacle, Goldfinger. I want to do something with massive over-the-top spectacle, The Spile of Me. They'd look at You Only Live Twice. So the difference with Terence Fisher is I think all the other Hammer directors took the cue from him and the style he set with The Curse of Frankenstein and Dracula. So there's that question, is he an auteur? I don't think you call him auteur filmmaker, but I think he's a great craftsman. And like I say, he used his craftsmanship to create a distinctive template that Hammer could thrive from. And it's that thing, these are low budget horror exploitation films, but there's a kind of discipline and a seriousness about them in the casting and the acting, and that all spans from Fisher's approach. So before Hammer, he kind of did British thrillers and stuff like that. I'm not massively clued up in his filmography. I'm not going about it. But once he hit with Hammer, he's left a really good body of work. And my number one choice is this 1968's The Devil Rides Out. So this is it's not necessarily the scariest Hammer film, but I just think this is the one that is really classy. It's based on the Dennis Wheatley novel. This is Christopher Lee's greatest performance in a Hammer film, much better than Dracula. But also, I put it up there with, Man with a Golden Gun, Wicker Man, it's one of his top performances. He plays the guy, the patriarchal savant character, who's aware of the black magic being practiced by Charles Gray's Aleister Crowley type characters. Charles Gray, we know him as Blofeld in Diamonds Are Forever, briefly in You Only Live Twice as well. So he's great. There's a really great atmospheric sequence with Patrick Moe's characters driving on, I think. So Patrick Moe, he of Target fame and Emmerdale Farm. I like Patrick Moe's in that great episode of Sweeney as well with the Australians with George. Forget his second name. That actor anyway. It's good, but yes, he's kind of getting. He's looking in the mirror, your driving mirror, and then Charles Gray's face is appearing and kind of hypnotising him. I think this is better than Night of the Demon, actually. So Night of the Demon, the Anglo American production from '57. I think it's at Val Guest. Not sure, but Dan Andrews is in that. That's got an Aleister Crowley type figure, but it shows the monster too early on. What's great about this is the climax when they draw the circle. You have the different animated monsters coming in. And then it's a great line, my favourite line in Hammer history and a lot of horror films. The Goat of Mendes, the devil himself. Someone owns the Goat of Mendes mask, actually. I was watching that the other day. What an awesome thing. If I owned the Goat of Mendes mask, I would wear it regularly. So yeah, I love Devil's Rides Out. It just ticks all the boxes. So that's my Hammer top 10. Hope you enjoyed that. And I'll see you again. Thanks very much. Bye.